What if the greatest revenge wasn't anger, wasn't bitterness, and sure as hell wasn't begging? What if it was becoming the man she'll spend nights thinking about, but never get access to again? Not because you blocked her, not because you ghosted her, but because you evolved into something she can't reach anymore. You didn't chase, you didn't collapse, you didn't perform your pain, you held it, owned it, and then you let it forge you. That's what she didn't expect. See, when she walked away, she was looking for a reaction. Drama, desperation. She wanted to feel powerful, like she had that grip on your soul, but instead, you gave her silence. Silence is terrifying, because it doesn't give answers. It makes the mind spiral. And that's what's happening now. While you're locked in, hitting the gym, focusing on your mission, rewriting your story, her mind is racing, wondering if she miscalculated, wondering if she meant less than she thought, wondering why the man who was once so invested is now untouchable. This isn't about playing cold. This is about becoming calm, stoic, untethered, because the moment you stopped reacting, the balance of power shifted. Emotional control isn't about pretending you don't feel. It's about deciding what deserves your energy. And this, the heartbreak, it doesn't. Not anymore. You've stepped into the fire and refused to scream. That silence, that calm, it's the loudest thing she's ever heard. If you're done being haunted by the past, if you're ready to rise from the ashes, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I rise from every fall. Now let's begin. Number 1. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. She left. And yeah, it hurt. Let's not pretend otherwise. You felt that crack run through your chest like a thunderbolt. Your stomach dropped. Your thoughts spiraled. Nights stretched into a blur of, what did I do wrong? You felt blindsided, hollow, maybe even humiliated, and that's okay. That's human. The Stoics never said don't feel, they said don't drown. Pain is the entrance fee for attachment. You loved, you trusted, you believed, and when that foundation cracked, of course it hurt. That pain was real. But suffering is where most men make the fatal mistake. Suffering is a choice. It's what happens when you replay the wound, when you cling to the memory, when you make her absence your identity. Let that sink in. Suffering isn't something she caused. It's something you allow. The Stoic doesn't ask, why did this happen to me? He asks, what will I do with it now? And that's where everything changes. Because while one version of you wants to curl up and disappear, the stronger version, the future you, is sharpening himself on this exact moment. This is your forge. This is the burn before the rebirth. Look at the men who've built greatness from heartbreak. The ones who went dark, worked in silence, and came back carved in iron. You think they got there by crying into their pillow and checking her last scene? Nope. They got there by accepting the pain and refusing to let it control their next move. They stopped seeking closure, stopped scrolling, stopped wondering if she regrets it, and they started focusing inward, on discipline, on peace, on power. You don't get stronger by avoiding pain. You get stronger by standing in it and choosing to walk forward anyway. Pain is your reality. Suffering is your reaction. And reaction, that's your responsibility. So you feel it once, deeply. Then you let it harden you, sharpen you, and push you forward. No more victimhood, no more waiting. The world doesn't care how much it hurt. It only responds to what you become because of it. Number 2. She expected you to chase. You went silent. She thought you'd break. That's the truth. She expected a string of texts, a paragraph of confusion, a flood of I miss yous and we can fix this. Because that's the pattern she knows. That's what most men do when their emotions get hijacked. They chase, they plead, they show their heart like it's a resume, hoping to get rehired. But you gave her something she didn't plan for. Nothing. No message, no explosion, no reaction, just stillness, silence, distance. And that silence, that's what's killing her now. Understand this. Silence isn't empty. It's full of power. It forces the other person to sit with themselves, with their own choices, with the echo of what they thought they controlled. When you don't react, you disrupt her entire mental narrative. She expected your pain to validate her importance. She thought your reaction would feed her ego, but you cut the line. You let her go, and you let her feel that, without words, without a scene. This is where emotional control becomes lethal. You didn't disappear to make her chase. You disappeared to make peace with the storm. Because the moment you go silent, the dynamic shifts. She's no longer being chased. She's left wondering why the man she once knew suddenly vanished, not just physically, but emotionally. And that confusion, that mental chaos, it's far more powerful than any argument. This isn't about manipulation, it's about restraint. Most people overshare their pain in hopes someone else will heal it. But the Stoic man knows better. He knows healing is a solo mission. She doesn't get to see your heartbreak. She doesn't get the satisfaction of knowing she shook you. You're rebuilding in silence, evolving in private, and when she finally reaches for the version of you she left behind, he won't exist anymore. Number 3. Obsession lives where boundaries don't. You want to know why she could hurt you so deeply? It's because you gave her access to every room in your mind. No locked doors, no barriers, just wide open entry into your thoughts, your emotions, your peace. That's not love, that's exposure. And when someone knows they have that kind of reach into your soul, they stop valuing it. Comfort breeds carelessness. And now you see it. You were obsessed with the idea of her because you had no boundaries to protect you from the fallout. But that stops now. The Stoic doesn't hate what hurt him. He simply builds walls where he once left gates. You can't let her thoughts dominate your mind if you refuse to let her in. Every time you check her socials, every time you reread the texts, you're handing her your mental energy for free. And she doesn't even know it. You're suffering in silence while she's out living. Why? Because you allowed obsession to grow where discipline should have stood guard. It's time to reset the terms. She's not your source of validation anymore. She's not your mirror. You don't need her to see yourself clearly. That obsession you feel, that's a signal, a red light flashing, telling you that your boundaries are broken. So you rebuild them, tighten them, fortify them. You decide what gets your attention now, what gets your time, what gets your energy. Because not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially someone who walked away when you needed them to stay. She was a chapter. You were trying to make her the whole book. But this story continues without her. And from this point on, every page is written by you, not driven by her. Obsession dies when boundaries rise. So raise them, and don't look back. Number 4, you are not what she thinks of you. She had an image of you. Maybe it was flawed. Maybe it was small. Maybe it was based on your worst moments, your insecurities, your confusion. Maybe she saw you as too emotional, too available, too easy. And for a while, you believed her. You let her perception shape your self-worth. You wore her opinion like a label. But here's the raw truth. You are not what she thinks of you. You never were. Stoicism teaches one of the most liberating truths. You are responsible for your character, not someone else's narrative. Her opinion, that's hers to carry, not yours. You don't owe anyone the burden of proving your worth, especially not someone who walked away. You define who you are through your actions, your discipline, your growth, not her validation. Too many men crumble under the weight of a woman's judgment. They build their identity around her approval, and when that approval vanishes, so does their sense of self. That ends here. You are not her version of you. You're the man who chose to stay grounded, the man who's using this pain to become stronger, the man who will outgrow the shell she tried to fit him in. Because let's be honest, maybe she didn't see your value, but maybe that's not your problem. Maybe she didn't want to see it, or maybe she wasn't capable of meeting the real you. Either way, you don't shrink to make someone else comfortable. You don't apologize for evolving, and you don't pause your growth just because she stopped watching. The man you're becoming, he doesn't beg to be seen. He stands tall, regardless, quiet, controlled, unshaken. Her thoughts about you aren't facts, they're reflections of her own limitations. So let her think what she wants. You've got work to do. Number 5. Attention is currency. Spend it wisely. Your attention is power. And the moment you gave it to her without limits, you devalued it. You messaged first. You over-explained. You double-texted. You waited for replies like they were oxygen. All that energy, all that time, you poured it into someone who stopped investing in you. And here's the brutal part. The more you gave, the less it meant. Why? Because people don't value what's always available. They value what's scarce. And when your attention is constant, it becomes background noise. The Stoics knew this. What you give focus to becomes your master. When you gave her your focus, you gave her the ability to control your emotions without lifting a finger. Now you're taking it back. Attention isn't just about who you text. It's where your mind goes when you're alone. It's what you feed with your thoughts. She's not entitled to that anymore. Your attention now belongs to your progress, to your craft, to the version of you that doesn't seek validation, but builds it through consistency, discipline, and clarity. Start thinking like a king. Kings don't explain themselves. Kings don't beg. Kings know that their presence is earned. So from this moment forward, you stop offering your energy like it's free. You stop investing in people who don't reinvest in you. And you stop assuming that your love has to be loud to be real. Quiet love, love for yourself, your future, your mission, is louder than any text she'll never respond to. The less she hears from you, the more she feels your absence. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally understand your value. And now, your attention is going where it belongs, on the man you're becoming. Number 6. She'll feel your absence louder than your words. You could have said everything. You could have poured out your soul, tried to explain your pain, tried to make her understand what she threw away. But you didn't. You didn't chase closure. You didn't beg for clarity. You walked away in silence. And that silence, it's echoing louder than anything you could have said. She expected drama, emotion, a final scene, something that told her she still had control over your heart. But when you left with no fireworks, just calm, focused silence, you created something much more powerful, a void. And people don't process voids easily. They search for explanations. They fill in the blanks with doubt. Her mind starts running laps, trying to understand why the man who once gave her everything now gives her nothing. This is where you separate from the weak. Weak men talk too much. They try to prove their worth with paragraphs. Strong men go quiet and let their absence speak. Because your silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. It forces her to face herself. It forces her to feel what she once dismissed. And the longer it stretches, the heavier it becomes. You're not withholding to punish. You're detaching to protect. That's the difference. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't bandage your wounds. You're not using silence as a tactic. You're using it as a boundary. And boundaries, they build respect or reveal who never had any for you in the first place. So let her feel it. Let her wonder. Let the distance grow so wide she can't bridge it anymore. And when she finally realizes what she lost, she'll look for the man she used to know. But he'll be gone, and all she'll hear is silence. Number 7. Let her mind run wild. Stay still. She wants you to react. That's the unspoken game. She wants to know she still lives in your head, that she still has the power to shake your world just by existing. And most men fall right into it. They lash out, post cryptic messages, try to make her jealous, try to be seen. But you've stopped playing. You've mastered the art of stillness. While her mind races, yours is quiet. While she imagines how you're feeling, who you're with, if you still care, you're unbothered, building, focused. You've become unreadable. And in a world that thrives on emotional reactions, nothing is more unsettling than someone who refuses to give one. Stillness is a form of power. It shows control. It shows discipline. It shows that you're no longer being pulled by emotional strings. that you've stepped out of her mental loop and built your own space, a place where peace isn't dependent on her attention, her apology, or her regret. And don't get it twisted, she notices. She feels that you're not trying to win her back. She senses that your focus has shifted, and that's when the tables turn. Because the human mind hates unanswered questions. When you don't react, she fills the silence with her own fears. Maybe he's moved on. Maybe he never cared. Maybe I made a mistake. And every minute you remain still, those questions get louder. Let her mind run wild. Let it race in circles. But you stay centered. Calm is your rebellion. Control is your power. And stillness, that's your statement. Number 8. The one who cares less has the power. It sounds cold, but it's real. The one who cares less holds the power. Not because they're heartless, not because they never felt anything, but because they chose self-respect over desperation. They chose to keep their soul intact instead of begging someone else to value it. And that's you now. You're not colder, you're just clearer. She used to be the emotional center of your world. Your mood shifted depending on hers. Your confidence rose or fell based on her attention. That's over. You've pulled the plug. You're no longer emotionally invested in someone who made you feel disposable. You still care, but not more than you care about your own peace. And that subtle shift changes everything. When you stop chasing, she starts questioning. When you stop needing her validation, she starts noticing your absence. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring smarter, caring with limits, caring in a way that honors your dignity, not your ego. The man who cares less isn't heartless. He's focused. He's calm. He knows that emotional control isn't about turning everything off. It's about choosing what's worth turning on for. And when someone shows you that your love is optional, your silence becomes non-negotiable. This is how you reclaim power, not by manipulation, but by prioritization. You put your mission above your emotion, your purpose above her presence. And that shift? That's what makes her feel the loss. Because now she's the one wondering. Now she's the one chasing clarity. And you're already too far ahead to look back. Number 9. You become what you endure. There's a moment in every man's life when he breaks, or he becomes something else. Stronger, sharper, scarred, but unshakable. And that moment? It doesn't come during comfort, it comes in pain. It comes when the person you trusted most turns their back and you're left with nothing but silence, disappointment, and the wreckage of what could have been. That's where you were. But look at you now. Stoicism doesn't promise a painless life. It promises that pain won't define you unless you allow it to. What happened with her? That wasn't just heartbreak, that was your awakening. You got stripped down to the bone. No illusions, no fantasies, just the brutal truth of who you are without her. And instead of collapsing, you chose to rebuild, alone, quietly, relentlessly. This is the forge, the fire you walk through that burns away weakness, that melts down insecurity and recasts you in steel. You didn't run from it, you faced it. And with every sleepless night, every unanswered message, every wave of anger or sadness, you endured. Not as a victim, but as a man in transformation. You are becoming what most people run from. Stable, stoic, dangerous in your calm. You didn't need her apology. You didn't wait for closure. You created your own. And now, you're not chasing love. You're becoming the kind of man love chases. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you've built yourself into someone that no longer needs her. What you've been through, it didn't ruin you. It revealed you, and what it revealed is unstoppable. Number 10. She'll want back the man who no longer exists. At some point, maybe weeks from now, maybe months, she'll feel it. That slow burn of regret creeping in when the silence becomes too loud to ignore. She'll scroll past your name, hover over the messages, maybe even type something out, but she won't recognize the man on the other side anymore. Because the version of you she left behind, he's gone. And the man who replaced him doesn't fit into her world. She thought you'd stay frozen in that moment of heartbreak, waiting, hoping, aching. But instead, you became a ghost she can't touch. You've elevated, you've leveled up, and not in that flashy try to make her jealous kind of way. Number in the quiet, focused, unshakable kind of way that makes her question everything. The way that makes her realize she didn't walk away from a boy. She walked away from the man she never gave a chance to fully become. Now she sees glimpses. You're healthier, colder, sharper. You've got goals, momentum, presence. You're no longer reacting, no longer seeking. You're choosing. You're deciding who gets access, who gets close. And for the first time, she's not on that list. And that's the twist. She'll want back what she abandoned. She'll reach for the old version of you. But he doesn't live here anymore. The late-night texts, the second chances, the old dynamic, dead. You've evolved beyond the relationship, beyond her, beyond the need to prove anything. She'll feel that loss every time she remembers what you were willing to give and who you became after she walked away. And you'll just keep moving, not bitter, not angry, just gone, peacefully, permanently gone. You were never meant to stay broken. You were meant to be rebuilt, stronger, wiser, colder where you need to be, and more focused than ever. She thought the end of your relationship was the end of your growth. She was wrong. That heartbreak was the beginning, the pressure that forged your discipline, the silence that birthed your power, the void that forced you to meet the man hiding underneath the pain. This journey isn't about revenge. It's about resurrection, about becoming the man who doesn't just survive loss, he uses it, not to chase, not to prove, but to rise. You don't need her to see your value. You see it every time you look in the mirror and don't flinch. Every time you choose your purpose over your emotion. Every time you choose your future over your past. You didn't just let go of her. You let go of weakness, of neediness, of the lie that you have to be chosen to be worthy. You are no longer the man who waits, who hopes, who breaks. You are now the man who walks away, not because he doesn't feel, but because he refuses to fold. This is the path of the Stoic, still, sharp, dangerous in silence, built by pain, but never ruled by it. So if you've stopped begging for answers, if you've learned to stand in your silence and rebuild without apology, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications and comment below. I am no longer who she left behind, and walk forward. The world is watching, but more importantly, you are.